we have a reflection of the square root function, and it happens when the value of a is negative in the radical function y is equal to a times the square root of x. When a is negative, the graph of the parent function is reflected across the x-axis. So our parent function looks like this here, right? We get this curve. But if our a is negative, like it is here, we're going to have it reflected on this axis there. So our curve is going to look like this. It's going to come, it's going to start at 0, 0, and then come this way. Okay? And so we can go ahead and see that by graphing this function. All right. So let's start with our domain. It is going to be all x, such that x is greater than or equal to 0. And so we could start off our t-chart. So we got x and our y. Our x, we're going to do 0, 1, 2, 3. We can possibly do a 4. But starting out, here, square root of 0 is 0. So 0 times negative 2 is 0. So our y is equal to 0. Square root of 1 is 1. So our y is going to be negative 2. And then now we got to break out our calculator. So we have negative 2 times the square root of negative 2 times the square root of 2. So that is negative 2.82. And then we're going to do the same thing, negative 2 times the square root of 3. And that is negative 3.46. All right, let's go ahead and try graphing it now. We have 0, 0. That's the center point there. We have 1, negative 2. Gets us to there. And then we have 2, negative 2.8. So that's about right there. And then we have 3, and it goes to 3.46. So 3.46 is right about there. We can see our curve starting to form. So I can go ahead and graph my curve. It's going to look something like that. Right? So what's our range? Well, what's our possible y values? You could see here that we have a y value on the graph at 0. And it's going to go down to negative infinity, right? So we could say our range is y, such that y is less than or equal to 0. And we're done, right? And so what can we see when we have our a as a negative number? What we see is that our parent function is reflected along the x-axis. It comes down here, right? Down into this quadrant. And so you can see that, for example, 2b, if you go ahead and work it out. Right, this is a square root function, so our domain is going to be x such that x is greater than or equal to 0. We'll make our t-chart. You'll use 0, 1, 2, 3. You'll use values from 0 and greater. You'll figure out what y is equal to, and you'll plot it. You'll get some sort of a curve. You'll notice that because our a is negative, our curve is going to look like that in this quadrant down here, bottom right quadrant. Right? And why? Because the parent function is reflected along the x-axis. And then you can go ahead and determine the range. So I'll leave that for you to do.